So we'd like to welcome each and every one of you to the conference, the panel in conflict scenarios in Lebanon in the context of internal factors and regional competition, which is organized by ORSAM. It's been a very timely panel, we believe, because and also together with the participation of Dania, it's very timely that she is in Turkey now. So she also shows a lot about the internal dynamics of Lebanon, and she is currently also trying to help with regard to and also holding an official duty to alleviate the crisis, alleviate the problems in Lebanon. For that reason, it's of great importance for us to have the opportunity to see Dania in Turkey. So the Lebanon question is, traditionally considered as unfortunately, as a constituent of crisis and uncertainty and instability. Though it's a small country, Lebanon is personally known throughout history as a stage of conflict, as a country that has been impacted negatively due to the regional conflicts, unfortunately. And again, unfortunately, before October 7th, at a time when we were talking about stability, when we were talking about regional development in the region, just in the aftermath of October 7th, unfortunately, Lebanon and other countries have gone through new conflicts in the region. So at the time also, when we make assessments, we are also, Lebanon, we said that could be one of the areas where the crisis, where the conflict might spread. From the very first moment, of course, we have seen a rising conflict on the border of Lebanon, and now we see that this crisis, this tension is now turning into full-scale war. Maybe there is a risk of a full-scale war in Lebanon, especially between Hezbollah and Israel, and also this can turn into a regional war where Iran can be involved, and so this might turn into a regional conflict or war. So this is the risk that we are facing now. But it was the first stage of this, has unfortunately, as was the case throughout history, been Lebanon. So in this panel, we're going to be discussing with different dimensions with regard to the spread of this conflict into Lebanon in terms of internal factors and regional competition. So in that sense, of course, we have maybe two very important speakers outstanding in Turkey and Lebanon who are working on this particular issue, and they will have the opportunity to discuss about this. We have very valuable speakers today. Of course, we're going to be assessing this issue with different dimensions. Let us start with Dania, this panel. So Dania, as I mentioned, is holding a very important official position with regard to her active role in as a member and advisor of the Lebanon Crisis Response Team unit. And apart from that, of course, what made us to know her better is that she's an academician, she is a researcher, and she has made a lot of research in the research centers in Lebanon, and also in many research centers in the United States and in the Western world. She is a very prominent researcher, and at the same time, she is also writing columns in Arab news, and especially she is focusing on U.S. Gulf state relations and Iran, and also other issues in the Gulf. So she's writing regularly about these issues. It's an important column, so she has a lot of duties in that sense. And Dania she's not only probably be discussing about internal dynamics in Lebanon today, but she's also going to be talking about, of course, how these factors are assessing this issue, and depending on her current official position, probably she is going to be mentioning about the response efforts, and therefore we see that even if this is not a very big problem now, there is a migration that has started into Lebanon now, particularly from Syria and other countries in the region. There might be such a potential problem. Therefore, it means that probably you're going to be talking about that, Dania. Let us start our panel with Dania. Dania, I would like to give the floor to you. Çok teşekkür ediyorum bu güzel girişiniz için. Hepinize güzel bir öğleden sonra diliyorum. Hepinizi Öncelikle ORSAM'a teşekkür
A very short notice. They prepared this panel. Thank you. They like Polish people, very effective. So thank you, Mr. Kaders. Thank you, Mr. Oytun. And also, I would like to thank the Turkish Republic. They've been very quick in helping Lebanon. And thank you to Mr. Orhan, the president of Turkey. Turkey has always been a friend for Lebanon and for the Lebanese people. And now we know, everyone sitting here knows that Lebanon is in the middle of war, and this war will not start Lebanon. I will start first so you all know the situation, what's happening, and then I will talk about the risk of the war. This war started already. The Lebanon has a very bad economic and political situation. We didn't have a president for 2 years, since 2022. We don't have a prime minister. We have a caretaker prime minister and a caretaker cabinet. In 2019, we had a protest, and then after that, the government defaulted on it. So basically, it's a bankrupt country. The state cannot. So basically, the defaulted. People could not withdraw money from their banks. So basically, people lost all their savings. So they had no safety net. At the same time, the government, the Lebanese government, is not able to provide any services. Because it's a bankrupt, bankrupt. So basically, how people get the basic services is that political parties, each one confessional party, they offer services to their own people. You have religious institutions, they offer some services, and NGOs. But basically, the country is not functioning. So the war started, even, when 7 October started, the country was not functioning, was in a very bad situation. And it is very difficult from Gaza. And I'll tell you why this war here is creating a civil war. Like the war in Gaza will not create a war among the people of Gaza, but this will create a civil war. Because we had tension before. We had tension with Hezbollah first. There was first tension in 2019 when Hezbollah actually helped repress the protest. So there was the protest in 2019. There were asked to change the political class, and Hezbollah contributed to repress that. And in the eyes of many Lebanese, Hezbollah is actually helping the political class to stay afloat. And there was the Beirut port bombing, and here no friction happened with Hezbollah because Hezbollah didn't want the investigation. There was all friction around the investigation. There was allegation that Hezbollah kept the nitrate in the port of Beirut, and this is what exploded. And there was another layer of tension in 2022 because after Michel Aoun, the outgoing, the last president of Lebanon, finished his mandate, we have had no election and no president. Hezbollah insisting on his own candidate, Sleiman Frangieh. So there have been a lot of tension with Hezbollah. And then there was, on October 8th, Hezbollah started, the support for Gaza. Despite the fact that the Lebanese people all support the Palestinian and the Palestinian cause, a big part of the Lebanese were against that Hezbollah being involved. They were saying, we can support them directly, politically. We don't want to go into war where we're no match for Israel. Already there is a lot of tension before the bombing that started now, like a week ago. So, and Israel is hyping on tension because it is, I think, in Israel's interest to have a civil war. And how it is being that, because now Israel, it had the pure attack, and after it assassinated the head of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, and 12 of his main lieutenant of the leadership of It didn't stop and use that to leverage and to find a solution. Despite the Prime Minister Mikati and the Speaker of Parliament are asking Israel to negotiate on the 1701. Now, after the success, Israel is raising the bar. They want to eliminate Hezbollah. Basically, they're going after Hezbollah people wherever they are. So what is happening, for example, if you have a Hezbollah operative or a supporter, he goes and shelters somewhere, they would go and bomb this place. So this is creating friction, so people know they want to shelter Hezbollah people or Hezbollah support. And on the other hand, the government is trying, but as I said, the situation is very bad. So we have 1 million people left the south. The last statistic I had, there are 153,000 people in shelters that are organized by the government, by the state. But this tension can create a civil war, and I think Israel wants that, wants a civil war. They've been calling people and telling them, we're going to bomb your house. They're not only targeting Shia areas, they're targeting everywhere. Today, for example, they bombed heart of Beirut, Sunni area, Bashura, and Kola. So, as I told you, Lebanon, so this confessional structure of Lebanon, plus the tension that existed, plus now the fear of being bombed, this can create a friction among the Lebanese that can become a civil war, unless first, so that's why first thing, the government should be able to provide more shelter, so people don't have to find shelter for themselves, don't find solution for themselves, don't have to go to other people, and this fraction. And the army is doing all it can. It has also limited ability to prevent these fraction between people, between confession. And why this is different, I've been like going and briefing the U.S. since October 7th started, and this is different than Gaza. This, a war on Lebanon will not be contained only in Lebanon. A war in Lebanon, and that's what I'm telling officials for a long time, since that, if it starts in Lebanon, it will be in Middle East, it will be an all-out Middle East war. First of all, Hezbollah is more important for Iran than Hamas. Hezbollah is the first line of defense for Iran against Israel. I'll give an explanation what I mean about that. Iran, since '79, since the Iranian Revolution, the army was weakened. The army in Iran was weakened because it was very much Shah, so there was a purge of the officers. And since '79, because of the embargo, Iran was not able to renew its arsenal. So, the airplane, the Air Force, they go back to the 70s. So Iran deterrence was by the IRGC, by creating these proxies. So it is Hezbollah for Iran is the first line of defense against Israel. So basically, if Israel is to hit Iran, there is Hezbollah. So for this, Iran will not give up of Hezbollah. That's why we saw that Iran hit Israel. There you go. So, and Hezbollah, and now Israel also, as I said, they're bar. They could have, after the assassination of Hezbollah, said, okay, let's discuss 1701, let's discuss 1559, which is disarming Hezbollah. But no, they're refusing to negotiate. They want to go and eliminate Hezbollah, eliminate everyone. So they're going for the kill. At the end of the day, and Hezbollah are not going to go, Israel is after them. So they're not going to go raising a white flag. They're going to go fighting. So this will make it that really the potential for escalation is very, very high. And also especially that Israel is now openly threatening Iran. Israel is now openly threatening Iran. Prime Minister Netanyahu have said we can reach anyone in the Middle East, can reach anyone in the Middle East. And I think Israel is want to establish a new paradigm. With each major war, Israel establishes a new paradigm. So that will be bad for the entire region. Imagine a new wave of migration, of expulsion of Palestinians. Imagine till now, the Palestinians, Egypt has refused any expulsion of Palestinian and Jordan. But this might change if Israel now is going to get, they said, we will not stop unless we're totally victorious. So what does that mean? I think this will mean problem for all the region, all the Middle East. That's why this war really needs to stop. And I'm not really only saying about the war itself. If it doesn't stop, it will not only, it's not only a problem for the Middle East, it's not only a problem for Turkey and Jordan and Iraq, it's a problem for the entire world, because this will lead to disruption of oil, disruption of trade route. It will lead to a global recession. It is really, really bad, and it should be stopped. And if it doesn't stop at Lebanon, it's going to expand all over the region, especially now that Netanyahu is bluntly threatening Iran, and is speaking to the Iranian people and saying, we will relate you. And so, and also, even if we go to Lebanon, this can lead to a migration, and this is really very bad to Turkey and to Europe. Lebanon has 1 million people and 1.5 million refugees, Syrian refugees. Already 200 families from Lebanon, from the Syrian Lebanon, reach Idlib and reach its full. So these people are definitely crossed to Turkey. From Tripoli get to Turkey is like a few hours by boat. And from Lebanon to get to Europe, to get Cyprus, is few hours by boat. So you have a risk of migration that will affect Turkey and will affect Europe unless this war is stopped. What can be done? How can you, for example, convince Israel to stop? Well, you need the buffer. We had UNIFIL, but you need a stronger buffer. What we need is to have a buffer between Hezbollah and Israel to make sure that both countries have security, both countries can return their citizens to their borders. And to do that, well, I think we need a security guarantor. So UNIFIL was there for 17 years, but I think now it's stronger a buffer. We need a security guarantor to make sure what happened doesn't happen again, and there is a sustainable security. Thank you.
Thank you, Dania. Dania Hanım'a teşekkür ediyoruz. Güzel bir giriş oldu.
Thank you very much, Dania. This has been a great introduction. Especially, she mentioned about many great evaluation with regard to risk of migration, which is a problem for us all. And as you see that this process has started, as you have pinpointed in your speech. And of course, there is still a risk of a regional war. This is, as you said, the risk of a regional war is not only hinged on an economic aspect, but also a social aspect, as you have mentioned. And also, again, there might be maybe a migration of migration from Iran into Turkey too. This is very important points to draw here. So there is also a potential that this crisis might escalate, as you have said. Of course, I have some questions in my mind, but we can discuss this during the Q&A period. So for the second one, I would like to give the floor to our Gökhan Batu, who is an expert in ORSAM about the Levant studies. Gökhan Batu is going to talk about Israeli perspective, because he is an expert on Israeli foreign policy and security. He is one of the most important researchers in that field, especially in the process in the aftermath of October 7th. He has also closely followed the crisis between Israel and Hezbollah. And also, he is going to be mentioning about this increasing tension in the aftermath of October 7. And he is also going to be talking about the main goals of Israel. What does Israel really want to do? What is the ultimate goal? He is going to be making a perspective. So I would like to give the floor to Gökhan Batu now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also would like to thank Dania for her great introduction. As she has also mentioned, she said we need a buffer. So this buffer is important an issue, and this is a very important part. I mean, establishment of a buffer is of great importance. If we might establish a buffer, I don't know whether Hezbollah will accept it or not, but also the 10701, you know, there is a resolution. So whether it will, if it will be accepted, so if we can establish such a buffer, we can at least maybe create a stage where we can decrease the level of tension and conflicts. So this is of great importance, what she said. I would like to very generally pinpoint on the Iran, Israel, and Hezbollah. There is this crisis, the equation of this conflict. I'm going to talk about and make a comparison between quality and quantity of this conflict, because this is, after all, a fight between the quality and quantity of this conflict. As you see that there's a technological superiority, and mostly you can also consider them geographically, or you can just look at how the Iron Dome was exceeded, is surrendered here. So it's the exceeding of the missiles into that they have exceeded, that they managed to exceed the level of the protection of Iron Dome is of great importance here to discuss, because, you know, Israel normally has very good, very well-equipped army, but there's some lack of strategy. So in that sense, we have to talk about how to, for example, develop some of these technologies, especially increasing the level of ammunition and weaponry in order to balance this process. This is represented by that, you know, that the parties, both parties are, they are focusing on one another's weaknesses and advantages. So first of all, we have to clarify this issue well. So we are always talking about, we say, why there's missiles, why not other things? So, but in order to discuss this, Israel has a serious technological military superiority. But when we come to Iran, especially Hezbollah, and they have also a will and efforts to exceed the superiority of Israel. As you can see, Iran is spreading across the region by the elements that it is supporting with its auxiliaries, with its partners, and with the proxies. So I cannot talk about the partners as proxies, but you see that some of them, especially, we know that they are surrounded by over Israel. You can see it on this map, especially in the south, from the south of Lebanon to the Golan Heights. You can see how these actors have been positioned. And so this is a threat as considered by Israel. So in that sense, as from 8th of October, this is one day after 7th of October, as Dania mentioned, Hezbollah has been involved in the war, just very in the aftermath of the 7th of October. So the reason why it has is that have low level of drone attacks here, and in order to pressurize Israel. But as you can see here, you know, the marketplaces from Alma Center are the areas that have been evacuated by Israel in the aftermath of October 7th. This one in the map, you can see, the yellow ones are the places where Hezbollah hit. So Hezbollah pressurized Israel to the north, but it has been very careful to make sure that this is as a low-density attack, in order not to turn it into a full-fledged war. So just to pressurize Israel. So Hezbollah was extremely sensitive about that. So we see that very few missiles hit Haifa in the south. So we see that. I would like to recall this was the situation by mid-September. But now, of course, until the midst of September, we see the attacks of Israel. During this 11-month period, Israel has killed, assassinated many Hezbollah leaders. So it has almost eliminated all the leadership of Hezbollah by killing them. So one of them, Abu Aliya, the other one, Naim Qasim. And so you see that there is actually a real difference between the two sides in terms of their engagements. This is an important issue to consider. So you see that Hezbollah's weight of center was attacked here during the attacks, during the assault. Also, there is such a situation, of course, as you may appreciate. In my point of view, this was an important thing in terms of deterrence. When you look at the deterrence theories, when you read them, you see that when you are threatening your enemy, it has to be credible. I mean, it has to be understood. So if you have a red line, you have to comply with that red line, the requirements of it. If you're threatening someone, if you're testing that deterrence, then you have to do what should be done. So you have to fulfill your obligations and what you are committing. So also, especially Hassan Nasrallah's assassination and the pager, attacks, these were not surprise for us in that sense. Osmani Haniya's assassination was not a surprise either. But the main problem here is that Hezbollah, particularly Hezbollah and Iran, reacted very belatedly to these assassinations, and maybe weak reaction. I mean, of course, this doesn't mean that we are not approving anybody's attacking the other, but strategically speaking, if you're talking about deterrence, then, of course, your attitude is of great importance because with the weakness of Iran and Hezbollah has opened a way for Israel's further attacks after these assassinations. So I can say that when you look at that, when we compare it with the war in 2006, we see that Hezbollah really increased its capacity, incredibly increased, depending on their war experiences, because they are always fighting, and also with regard to supply of ammunition and weaponry, and in Bekaa, in Lebanon, and to the south of Litani River also, Hezbollah has been very active there. But the thing is that the studies that made on the show that shows that normally entering these places and marching there is not very easy. So, but Hassan Nasrallah's assassination and the pager attacks, and also the walkie-talkie attacks, it has been stated, this is called as supply chain attacks, actually. And as Dania mentioned, these have really strike a very serious blow on Hezbollah, because when Israel, see throughout the years, Israel, during the past years, it couldn't maybe achieve its political aims, but especially Israel is now because it couldn't prevent the consolidation of the non-state actors there. It has then put the Hezbollah in a very difficult situation, because normally this couldn't be foreseen. But I have to express the important thing that the thing is not finished yet. In the south of Lebanon, Hezbollah still has an important destruction presence, and including Israel, of course, in the attack, 50% of Hezbollah's capacity could be only penetrated into. So in that sense, of course, it has been stated that there's a third or day 4 of a process. We cannot talk about, if we say that Hezbollah still has a strong reinforcement inside of Lebanon against Israel's incursion, so it is effective. So also, if I'm not mistaken, there have been 2 different attacks in Metula and Masjid Jabal in the south, and there were so many wounded people there too. When we look at the general picture, we see that what does Israel want? As Dania mentioned, the matter is not Hezbollah's, if it's the withdrawal of it to the north of Litani River, I don't think this is such an easy thing. This is not the one. I mean, if there is a pressure by imposing a pressure on the Hezbollah to move itself to the north, maybe this can be an acceptable scenario for both sides. But Hezbollah, because also has a political presence inside of Lebanon, so one of the most important political actors in the region too. So of course Nasrallah's death is within this equation has also led us to follow maybe the future developments in this due process. But as you can see in the current operation, this is the latest situation in the south and in the east, in the shaded areas. These are the zones of prohibited zones of Israel. Maybe this might be a way of surprising people. We don't know. But this is a restricted operation. And also there were 80,000, 90,000 people who migrated to the north of Israel. Their return to their homeland might be a good advantage for both sides. So in that sense, of course, what is the more important thing that I see, which is deficient, is that both Israel and both Hamas cannot read Israel's activities well in terms of assaults. When they are reading, they are not also developing or considering the future assaults. So, of course, they were very much generous in terms of hostage exchange. They couldn't understand the pressure coming from the Israeli public opinion. So, again, I'm reiterating, we don't want civilians to be attacked. Please don't take me wrong. But strategically speaking, we have seen that they couldn't see this. They couldn't foresee protests inside of Israel because there have been so many protests inside of Israel for judicial reform too. And these protests are going. And these people also protesters against Netanyahu. But the equation changed in Hezbollah because when you see that there is an anti-war people in Gaza are against Hezbollah too. So because Israel government and Israel's army, they are actually supporting the army to take an action. But for the fact that Hezbollah locked the north part of with missile attacks has maybe affected the change of opinion in the public opinion of Israel. Maybe there could be different way of outweigh exit for Hezbollah. But I think Hezbollah was also not very good in reading this process. So we see them also I'm not going to go into details, but I see that there is a very great the Netanyahu government is, if you look at the election results, there's been a difference of 30,000. But this is because of the election system there. And this leads to a serious difference of MPs in the Knesset. So as I mentioned, as a result, there are three questions. The first question is, did Hezbollah and Iran truly not anticipate an Israeli response in the north? So so this is an important question. In my point of view, in both sides already knew about this, but for example, still there is a stage for the second question. So is an all-out war to push Hezbollah north of the Litani River a feasible scenario? I think Israel cannot, I'm not sure whether Israel can go into such a very long-lasting military process. If it will be on the contrary, it will be against Israel in my point of view. And also, of course, in the long term, I believe that there will be some security interests or might be negative security problems for Israel. Thank you. So, thank you for this. Microphone, please. I can't hear the speaker. So, and I believe that he made important inputs. What I drew from this presentation is Israel's sensational actions, the general perception is that Israel has a superiority in terms of escalating the tension, especially. This is the general perception. But as you mentioned about quantity, because this is important, and time is important, not only depth of this territory, but the time, and also the patience capacity of the pro-Iran people, pro-Iran actors in the region. It will, in my point of view, create a military balance in the long term, despite all these sensational activities of Israel. So what we can draw as a result is Israel is going to engage in a long-term occupational process. This is either impossible, or if it tries to, it will be too costly for Israel. This is one of the things that we can draw. And the Gaza issue is an important example. And also, as you have stated, Hezbollah has a more capacity and effectivity than 2006. So the Litani River, a buffer zone, the creation of a buffer zone there is really maybe might be done, but what is important is to make sure that it is sustainable, it is permanent. This buffer zone might be permanent in order to ensure stability in the region. That is the most important question mark in our minds. Maybe we can discuss about that too. Thank you very much for that input from Gökhan Batu. He has made a good perspective. Last speaker, I would like the Associate Professor Murat Tınas from Police Academy. And Murat Tınas, we know him for a long time as ORSAM. He is a valuable academician, an important scholar. He is also one of the most important outstanding authorities in Turkey regarding Lebanon, because he has written his PhD dissertation on a field study in Lebanon, about Lebanon. So this is of great importance. So it's also, I would like to give him the floor to talk about the Levant studies, because he's closely monitoring that region. Therefore, he's also a Turkish academician. He's also giving a Turkish perspective, maybe, because he's a Turkish academician. But of course, as we will be talking about this issue, I would like to ask him to deliver a speech about these issues. Thank you very much for coming. We are always talking about regional competition within the context, also for the region. What do you think about these scenarios? What do you think about the conflicts in Lebanon? How do they affect Turkey and the region, in your point of view? Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I would like to thank the moderator, Oytun, Orhan, and I also academic director of ORSAM. I would like to thank him too for his kind invite. Of course, we are going at a time where Lebanon is very important. So therefore, thinking about and talking about Lebanon is very important for us now. So as an academician, you have stressed that I'm an academician, but academicians have such a problem. But it is very difficult to talk about, to come to a conclusion. We have to, first of all, get input and then also stick to time, because we have problems in sticking to time as academicians. And I would like to make an introduction that, first of all, and I would like to go into my presentation. This has been stated, the assassination of Nasrallah. Is this an assassination, first of all? Let us ask this question. The first time I heard about the news, I look back to 14th of February 2005, Hariri assassination. This only people in Beirut know the severity of this assassination in 2005, because Beirut was really hit, really affected. So you see, Nasrallah was killed, but before him, the leadership, military leadership, were killed. But we know that there were 4 residential areas in 4 settlement areas, 4 big buildings, or 7, 8-story buildings. Each of them have 1 or 2 apartment buildings. Just calculate of it, and imagine that there are 4 or 5 families inside of each. And imagine that half of them are out at that time in the market, shopping. At least 10,000, 1,000 people died. So is this an individual assassination? No, this is a massacre when you look at it. Of course, the assassination was done. But when you talk about assassination, this is a specific thing for one person, individual person, or his guards. So this is a tragedy. So we have to talk about this, first of all. And for Iran, for Hezbollah, you know, this has been a very influential thing. So, but also we have to think about one other thing, that, of course, this is a great shock for Hezbollah, but this is a great shock for Iran. But for those who are planning to kill Rafik Hariri should not forget that the boomerang had turned back to them. So, will there be a pushback? Will there be a backfire? Because leadership is a great problem inside of Hezbollah, but how, for example, what kind of an influence can be created here? I don't know about it, but recently, as a person who is working on Lebanon, on radicalization on Lebanon, I see that the literature of radicalization will be enriched by these the attacks and by these developments that they see. And there will be, of course, we see that the conflicts will carry on, in my point of view. It has been stated by the speakers that about Iran, Israel, and Lebanon. We are talking about the states in the region. But when you look at the Western literature, and we look at the concept of state, it is something different. In the Levant, this concept of state is different. So, is it the same state that we are talking about? In English, we call it state, right? So, anything starting with ST is related to stability, like in English. So, but when we talk Arabic, it's a state is like a luck. It's not like it doesn't mention about stability, but in English, mentions about stability. So, sociologically, and we have a historical perspective, but this is also related to the mandate systems created in the aftermath of World War I. Therefore, the relationship between the people and the states is problematic in the Levant region. Ayubi, for example, one of the most prolific, important, eminent scholars, he says state is not simply a reflection of class reliance in the Levant. It means that state cannot, in the Levant region, the state cannot be, is not an organ that reflects the class, but the creator of such. I mean, it is creator of the facts, or it is a device that tries to create such facts. So as we see in the creation, this creation is problematic, as is the case in any creation. So in this sense, this is a problematic. There is a problem between the creation of a state and the people. For example, Iran. What about the relationship between the government, the state, and its people? Lebanon, Syria. So or Israel in the same manner. When we talk about Israel, this question can be made. Is Israel the reflection of its society? Can it reflect its society? For example, the response to this question is very clear. So when we talk about, apart from its reflection, we will talk about the way of its recreation and the change of population. And they're trying to, Israel is trying to create a new society by means of massacre. When we talk about state, when we have non-state actors like Hezbollah in the Western literature, when you talk about non-state actors, they say that these are the actors who are founded to influence the societies out of the state. Is it the same in the Middle East? When we look at this definition, this is totally the contrary. This is challenging. The non-state actors are challenging the existing state in Levant, in the Middle East, because they are armed mostly. They act like states, like Hezbollah, for example, or for example, they have their system, they have hospitals, they have schools. It looks like it functions like a state, an independent state, Hezbollah. So even if a non-state actor as a definition should be considered in a different manner in the Middle East with its own functions. So it's not the same thing. Like it is not like for example, NGOs. It's not like the NGOs in the Western world that is protecting the rights of the cats or dogs on the street. So we're talking about something different in the Middle East. We're talking about different groups, and some of them are very transnational, not only regional, but regional and also transnational. So they have transnational or regional impacts. So I'm going to go through very fast, but of course, when we talk about the political side, and in order to understand the existing crisis in the definitions of state, one of the most important pillars is political economy. There is no political economy in the Levant. Do we have there's a feudal capitalism maybe. So there is a patronage network in the Levant, like Giga, you know, maybe in Germany. It's like, just consider about how, for example, the Assad government survived. There have been so many articles. This is because of the patronage networks that make sure that the existing regimes survive, like feudal capitalism and degenerative effects of this. So, of course, this might be quite different. In Lebanon, for example, there is a patronage, and this is an important issue to discuss. I don't want to give names, but I just accidentally was hosted in a feudal lord's house. Maybe people know in Lebanon, in a part of Lebanon. So the community members came and they said, well, my sheep has gone to the other side of the river, and the man on the other side of the river seized it. They say, well, this tree was mine, but somebody took harvest out of it. So there are such kind of complaints. Nobody goes to the court. Nobody goes to court to file one another. It's like you directly go to Hariri, for example. This is a patronage network. And so these are important issues to understand the latest developments. In that sense, of course, when we, in the Levant, or are they the proxies or the actors? Well, for Israel, is it only carrying out its own war, or is there a civil war? As the civil war, Syria is a proxy war itself? We should ask such questions. But Israel's attack into Lebanon is a new phase, new stage. It has to be taken seriously. But this is not a new war. This is something, the effects of the regional and global and local wars, new stage of these wars that have started in 2003 or something. So it's not, no new actors are involved actually in this conflict. So when we're talking about this, try to understand the existing situation, we have to look for this continuity factor. When we look at this framework, of course, last of all, of course, I would like to state that when we look at the Levant region or Lebanon, the rest important thing that I would like to talk about is identity, nation-state identity. Unfortunately, this nation-state identity could not be created. So together with Yemen, for example, Lebanon was one of the most unsuccessful countries. There were sovereign states or sub-state, sub-national identities are more important for Lebanon than a national identity. This was seen as an anomaly for a long time, but now seen as normally because after 2003, identities, state and identities and regional identities have been very much influential in the Middle East, and Lebanon's situation is not seen as an anomaly anymore. When we talk about Iraq, we are not talking about the Shiite prime minister. We never mentioned Sunni prime minister. We never did it before, but now we are talking about this. We are referring to such kind of sectarian identities too. Also across very close to the Levant, we have such identity issues. Identity is of great importance here. So these are identities beyond the stage. This is important to understand the situation. And last of all, and the power wars in the Levant, as the Americans say, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. This is not the same way. As you have just mentioned very accurately, what stays in Lebanon will not stay in Lebanon. So what happens in the region will not stay in the region because there are other factors, so we have to make global actors. We have to take into account the regional and the local actors. There are three-dimensional aspects we have to make. This is of great importance. This is very difficult to understand this. When 1975, a civil war in Lebanon started, President Ford made a presentation by Kissinger at that time. You can find the meeting minutes after the President Ford said, "It is so complicated that it defies logic," he said. So it says it is really very intricate, very complex. I cannot understand it. It defies logic, he said. So we have really complicated relationships here. So within this framework, and when we look at these pillars, what do we get from, how can we evaluate on the existing situation? The assassination of Nasrallah is a really serious event. It's not only an assassination. It's not only killing one person. This is something against international law And this is, maybe Lebanon has not declared it yet. Maybe they will never. That we don't know how many people died there. We don't know how many children, how many women, how many elderly, including men, died there. We do not know it officially. But this assassination, and together with the massacre of so many people, has led to a new perception in the Middle East. I don't want to say that the Shiites are sad and Sunnis are happy. No. Of course, Hezbollah and Nasrallah have an important role, and it was always critical, it was always controversial, especially in the Israel's attack made it. There was an idea of al-muqawama. Is it a resistance, or how do we have a mutual thing? This was one of the most important things, and I think this is a right issue to discuss. But we should also not forget that. Also, my Lebanese colleagues also say, when I ask them how they feel about this, I mean, Hezbollah's side, they say in the chat that this mustn't have ended this way, they said. There were people who said that. Of course, Nasrallah is a criminal. He made a lot of crimes he committed. Maybe one of these people don't like him, and but the movie shouldn't have ended this way. Or if Nasrallah would be killed by someone, the killer shouldn't have been Israel. So because the enemy of my enemy is my friend is not, it doesn't apply here. So yesterday I was watching a meeting when you were also monitoring this. I really recommend you to follow these programs. American Task Force in Lebanon by Peter Gabriel, that's headed by him. They had a panel. Khatib made an introduction. So then he said, I have an important meeting, so I have to quit. And then made to speak Barry. Who is Barry? At the same time, not Hezbollah, but when you want to speak to Hezbollah, you speak to Barry, and they speaks to Hezbollah. So this is an indirect relationship. Even this one shows how a feudal system works. How it is landlords or feudal lords are still using them or representing them beyond just political parties. Hol Salem, as you know, one of the most important people in Lebanon in the academy, mentioned that this refugee problem is a great problem. I agree with you, because this is one of the actualities of great importance here. Migration is the actual, real grave problem. Because Lebanon is not a big country. It's like 4 million people. Just think about the Syrians living there. Except for that, 1 million of that 4 million have been displaced from their homes. So this is a large number, a huge number. 25% of the population is internally displaced. So this cannot be sustainable. This is not something sustainable in terms of social aspects. People are not living in the streets, as you said, but they are living inside the schools. So how can you clean them? How can you maintain their hygiene? How can you maintain privacy of families in such situations? This is a social trauma. This might turn into a very severe social trauma. So also elected president problem is another one problem in Lebanon. Is it important? Is it that important? Yes, but whoever president in Lebanon is important. It's not unimportant, because is not going to be the president of any country, because feudal lords are very important, but they couldn't solve this political problem. I think that they can just go through the making decisions fastly. They can accelerate this process of electing a president. Maybe in terms of ending the conflict, this might be a good way. But 17th, the resolution number 1701, is that there is actually a buffer zone in Lebanon, an existing one, but it is not de facto. It's not a de facto buffer zone. UNIFRE, including Turkey, is providing this. As much as I know, there are only 2 staff on land, and the others are on the sea. So they are inside this UNIFRE, this United Nations unit there. But there is also a large team there. How effective can it be? How can this buffer zone be more functional? And if you, for example, convince Hezbollah, will Israel want such a buffer zone? I'm not sure, because as you see on the 7th of October attack has turned into a humanitarian plight in Gaza, and Israel thinks that it is winning the war. So I don't think that a buffer zone will be directly acceptable by Israel. But before talking about Turkey's role in this sense, I have a couple of minutes only left to speak. I will be very brief. So after this operation, will there be a response from Israel after this attack by Iran? Yes, it will. It will definitely respond. How will it can hit the nuclear facilities of Iran? I don't think it can, but this is a possibility. I don't want to be so, but I think that it can hit some oil facilities of Iran. Israel will give a response. I don't know. Iran might change some of the facilities, maybe locations. We don't know. But this is an important input, and it's very affirmative. I don't know. But we should not forget that I talked about continuity, and we shouldn't forget about history. This is not the first time that Israel is occupying Lebanon. This is the fourth time. And it couldn't resolve the problem before. Israel is not more secure. And this fourth occupation, and Israel won't be more secure, because, the Israelis, politics, the strategists say that it's like just, grazing the grass. Israel is coming, grazing the grass. It is, closing some parts which are suitable for it, but it doesn't create a security, because such a state is not delving into the very core of the matter. It is only dealing with the, acute and very superficial outputs. So it is just transferring the resolution of the problem to the next generation. This is a very dangerous approach for the region. As for Turkey, well, it was also very clear in Gaza and also very clear in Lebanon. First of all, that Turkey has made it very clear that it will be very clear against any potential humanitarian plight, because when we look at the Middle East turn policy, we see that one of the most important and determining factors is protecting the regional security or stability, having balanced relationship with the Arab world, because we have tried to deepen these relations in the latest times. But Turkey is also not such a country that it's not a marginal country, and it also considers to have a balance with Israel. It has to do it too. This balanced policy is an important input, and regional stability is an important output for Turkey, is an important factor that has an effect on making decisions for Turkey. For that, of course, Turkey will continue to support diplomatic efforts to solve the problem, but of course, we really appreciate your efforts. Lebanon is really in need of humanitarian need now, monetary need now. So Turkey will continue to provide such assistance, and will do its best to make sure that Lebanon's voice may be heard on the international arena, because Lebanon is not a country that we can turn our back to. So I just want to end my speech with an anecdote. I was in Beirut, the capital of Lebanon. In the center of the city, there was the Prime Minister's office, and this building used the Prime Minister's office was the governor's office in the time of the Ottoman Empire. So this is not, I'm not a neo-Ottomanic person in a romantic, but this is a symbolic importance, as you may appreciate. I'm not a dreamer. I'm not trying to recreate or revive neo-Ottomanism. This is not effective. This is not feasible. But such symbolic historical things are important. For that reason, I definitely believe that Turkey will be actively engaged in this process. So thank you very much for listening to me in patience. So I want to restrict my time. Thank you so much. So you have mentioned about your academic sensitivity. You have provided us insight into the latest developments. Thank you for that kind perspective. Of course, as Dania mentioned, she talked about the origins of Lebanese problems, the problems in Lebanon. You have also mentioned that creating the national identity, the problem in creating national identity, also civil wars, negative effect on the restitution of state power, as Dania mentioned. Also, your insight into the social differences. Unfortunately, all these actors have led to the creation of such kind of a state structure in Lebanon, which also makes it vulnerable to some external influence, unfortunately. So, in that reason, of course, we may say that Lebanon is becoming a stage of regional instability. This is the main reason why we call it. But also, what you say is that is important. The Hezbollah leader's assassination, as you mentioned, shouldn't have been this way. The story shouldn't have ended this way, because maybe the only problem that unites the Lebanese people was being anti-Israel. Because, of course, Lebanese people have their internal problems, internal issues. Sometimes it turns into conflict. But when Israel is in question, when Israel is concerned, Lebanese people are united against this. So this is of also great importance. I would also ask this to Dania too, this question to Dania. Do you think that Israel's attacks will lead to civil war, or on the contrary, will it lead to more unity and strengthening of unity inside of Lebanon? This was one of the questions that I would like to ask to Dania. Maybe we can talk about this during the Q&A session. So I would like to thank the Professor Tınas for that. I think we have 15-20 minutes now. We are now coming to the Q&A session. If there is anyone from the audience who wants to ask a question or make a comment, we have a microphone too.
Hello everyone. I am Murat from ORSAM. I have two questions to Ms. Dania. We know that as apart from the Shia community in Lebanon are against Hezbollah, or not homogeneous with its project. My question, are they able, these people or figures who's against the project of Hezbollah from Shia's community in Lebanon, are they able to take role or make difference in the upcoming equation and political security equation in Lebanon? And my second question, after the dramatic moment in Lebanon, what you think about the future of the nominate of Suleiman Frangieh, the head of Murat group, to the position of president of Republic? Thank you very much.
Should I answer?
If you like, we could some questions, then we can join that. So before that, there was another. Öncesinde Batu Bey'den sonra.
Wants to ask a question. Herkese güzel bir öğleden sonra dinlemesi. Ben de Dania.
So my question is, do you, as you said, the frictions in the Lebanese society are there, but there are no armed fractions, since the agreements, most of the weaponry, the arms are taken from the political parties and their fractions. So how do you see a possibility for civil war? Thank you.
Son bir üçüncü soru da alalım. Buyurun beyefendi. Soru soracaktı. Sonra cevaplara geçelim.
Konuşmacılara teşekkür ediyorum. Sağ olun.
For their speech, I also would like to ask a question to Dania. You know that at the stage of the establishment of Hezbollah, they were at the Shibi and also Mustafa German, they had very important contributions. And in that sense, especially in Trablus, Sham leader Shesham Shabani, and has also made contributions. And also these contributions, you know, how much hatred did contributions lead for Hezbollah? How much hatred did Hezbollah get as a result of these contributions? So will there be a Shia from, there's the Tufaili and the Shia sectors. Is there such a difference? Is there a conflict of opinions before that, because the former secretary mentioned that they were separated. How does this separation from these factions affect on the Hezbollah? Pardon, çok.
Didn't hear you. There was cross-talking. There was cross-talking when you spoke. So basically, you're asking me if there are others like Shtohi Tfaili. Can you please repeat the question, because there was, I didn't hear it well. Can you please repeat it? Sorry.
Microphone, please. The first question. İlk soruyu soruyorsunuz değil mi? Arap Şiiri, evet. İlk soruyu sorarsanız tekrar. The first question. You know, at the stage of the establishment of Hezbollah, Muhtashami, Damascus ambassador, Iranian ambassador, and Tufaili, and Mustafa Jamra, and also my question, this question is, with the Sunni structures, do they have any legitimacy, they don't have any contribution to the legitimacy of Hezbollah? Sunni olanlar diyorsun sen. Saide ve Sur'daki.
You took the
legitimization
of Hezbollah? The Sunnis, yes, but inside the
Islamic center.
Inside, okay.
Anyway, it's a very specific question. Yeah. Maybe you could start with. I mean, starting with other questions, maybe you could also touch on
there are
at
many
the end.
questions.
Yes.
Should I answer?
You are the most popular one.
Okay. First, I want before I start with the question of the audience, I want to answer two questions. One of your questions, which is about the occupation of Israel, and one question of Gökhan, he said, how did Hezbollah not anticipate the war? They did not anticipate the war. And throughout, for almost 1 year, they tried to keep it low intensity. Kill us a goat, we kill a goat. So they didn't want really war with Israel. They just wanted to keep Israel busy. So a third of its army is on the north, so there is less pressure on Gaza. And, you know, they actually didn't try to avoid civilians. They just wanted, that's why they call it Jabhat Ishghal, to be busy. So they didn't want the war, that's for sure, and they didn't anticipate it. They thought they had enough deterrence, that Israel wouldn't want to hit, to expand, they will expand. And then the major attack was the game changer. That's one. The occupation of Israel, what's saying? Israel is trying now to instigate the civil war by going and bombing people who are Hezbollah bombed.
Will it have an effect, I mean, on the opposite side? I mean,
yeah, but I'll tell you something about Hezbollah. And you are right also about the opposite fact on the issue of legitimacy of Hezbollah. Listen, Hezbollah went through different stages. Before 2000, the whole Lebanese population was behind Hezbollah because it was very clear. There was occupation, that's a lawful occupation, and there was a part fighting the occupation. So whatever you were, Sunni, Christian, liberal, conservative, you like Islamism, you hate Islamism, there was someone who was, you know, fighting the occupation. Everyone with Hezbollah. When Israel withdrew unilaterally, people were starting to ask, why does Hezbollah have arms? Why don't they become, you know, a party, a political party? Especially that after 2005, they took part of the government. Before 2005, they didn't take part of the government. And then in 2008, when they attacked Beirut, and then after that we had the Doha agreement, a lot of Lebanese said, well, your arms are supposed to be against Israel. You're turning against Lebanese, because Hezbollah always used to say, my arms is against...
they toppled the government, right?
Yeah, because they would say, my arms is always against Israel, it's not against the Lebanese. And then when they went to Syria, also a lot of Lebanese were very appalled by it, by saying, okay, your arms now are going to support a dictator, from whom Lebanon suffered enough. So they're losing legitimacy gradually. In 2019 also, even more legitimacy because they were repressing the popular protest. So it was in the arm that is protecting the corrupt political class. And then you had the 224 August port explosion. And so they were losing legitimacy. Now, when Israel, I think, when Israel does a ground incursion, and now it is being occupying force, this will give again Hezbollah the legitimacy it needs. So, and this will allow Hezbollah to recreate itself. As Gökhan said, they're not totally finished. So if really Israel, if they are smart, they wouldn't invade Lebanon, and they would go for a buffer zone. That's even better, because at the end, Hezbollah is an idea. And if, as long as they have legitimacy, they will live. They will live. Okay. So now, Mr., you have an alternative for Hezbollah. So far, there is no real alternative. But we are in the middle of the war. I don't have clear statistics, but I can tell the majority of Shia support Hezbollah. There is some Shias who do not, but I don't. But you know, don't forget, Hezbollah is not only an armed group. They provide social and economic service to the community, to the Shia community. About my personal point of view, Frangieh is no longer a valid because even today, out from the news that Berri, as Mr. Murat said, he's like the spokesperson, unofficial, like the middleman for Hezbollah, said that Hezbollah told him now, because you know, for 2 years we didn't have a president, they would say, Frangieh or no one, they would, you know, not allow the war. So now they're saying that they ask Nabih Berri to allow for a session to elect the president, which means indirectly that we're ready to compromise. About the possibility of a civil war, the fact they are armed and the others are not armed, you know, for civil wars, you don't need these missiles that Gökhan showed you. You know, with civil war, you need mitrailleurs, you know, guns and this, and a lot of people have arms, you know, individual arms in their home. So yes, you can have friction, and you know, when you have a situation like that, you can have many spoilers who will fund different factions. You know how the civil war happened. It was only the Palestinians who had arms, but then suddenly all the others and the Christians found places to get arms. So you know, this could be a civil war. We hope no. The difference between Sunni Arabs, Shia Arabs, and Shia Arab and Shia Iranian. Well, you have the Arab Shiism, for example, Mr. Sayyid Fadlallah, they are more towards Najaf, and they don't believe in Wilayat al-Faqih, whereas the Shia, Iranian Shia, their reference is Qom, and they believed in Wilayat al-Faqih. That's the main difference. I personally, and I'm talking here about Shiism. So yes, there is difference between the Arab Shia, they don't believe in Wilayat al-Faqih, and the Iranian Shia believe in Wilayat al-Faqih. Believe in Wilayat al-Faqih. I mean, even they've said, I mean, said, I'm a soldier in the Wilayat al-Faqih, in Wilayat al-Faqih. Hezbollah have built also alliances with other groups, Sunni groups like Al-Jama'ah al-Islam, who are like their stronghold in Saida. Even until recently, they were allies with the Christian, with Michel Aoun. And actually, they fought not because of October 7, or they fought because the Free Patriotic Movement, they wanted Basile, who's the son-in-law of the former president, to be their candidate. They chose Frangieh. So yes, they do have, and these alliances, by the way, gave them legitimacy. You know, that we're not like Shia, we have support from the Sunni, we have support from the Christians. So did I answer the question?
But Hezbollah didn't know a war was coming or not?
Yeah.
Actually, I'm not agreed because even Iran said that Israel wants to turn to north after it deals with Gaza issue. And secondly, Israel is many times that will deal with the issue unless it stops, Hezbollah stops attacks to the, you know, like 80 or 90,000 people, the northern part of Israel, and immigrated to the inner parts of the country, living in some hotels and some institutions. So that's a huge problem for Israel, and they clearly said that a war is coming unless the attacks stop. So it was obvious to me, but I respect what you think. Thanks.
Evet, Kaan Devecioğlu sorusu vardı. İkinci tur soruları alabiliriz.
Hello. I'm Kaan Devecioğlu from ORSAM. I want to ask my question also, Dr. Dania. Actually, I would like to elaborate on your explanation regarding the guarantor role. In your opinion, which actor should assume the guarantor role in Lebanon?
Well, why not Turkey? Well,
Yes,
Turkey
okay,
is the
which
strongest
country?
country in the Middle East, militarily. I think they can establish enough deterrence. They can make sure that Hezbollah keeps its weapons in the basement, and they can make sure that Israel doesn't go over Libya's airspace. So I think, because, you know, the buffer, the security guarantor has to be a strong party. Like, you know, if you look at Kosovo, Kosovo worked because it had a strong country that was the security guarantor, the US. So no party would want to provoke or upset the US. That's why everyone was like calm and restricted. So, you know, a security guarantor, you cannot bring a small country. You want a country that, you know, both parties would not like to upset. I mean, I'm giving an example.
Söyleyebilir miyim bu konuda? Şimdi madem siz bir introduce ederken Türk akademisyen olarak dediniz.
Sorry?
He also wants to present
Kendime böyle bir rol biçtim.
Yes.
Ama tabii ki herhangi
This
bir
role as a Turkish, of course, I don't know what the government authorities think, but as a Turkish citizen, what I would like to say is in Turkey's approaches to such region, we should not be behaving individually. We should be working in line with international organizations, just as the case we did in Kosovo, for example. The first thing is that I would like to say is the second thing is that Turkey's intervention into the Arab world cannot be always in the way that we want, because, for example, there was sometimes during the foreign ministry of Turkey had an idea of like we are the old elder brother of the Arabs or Arabic world. This was maybe not a very appropriate behavior. Of course, I also was living in that time in Lebanon. Of course, we have shared a lot of history with the Arabic world. These are very important cultural tenets, but there was, so Ottoman Empire has led to the rise of Arabic nationalism, Arab nationalism, because we should not be behaving this manner, because anytime Turkey embraces such an Ottomanic idea, this creates a reaction from the Arabic world and leads to Arab nationalism. So that's the reason why I'm saying we should, yes, we can assume such a role, but we have to get the support of regional actors, and also we should work with international organizations only if we want to assume such a role. And this is also a very important role, assuming such a role in terms of perspective, because we can have a reaction if we happen to the way, because Dania also made an offer, made a proposal. This is a good proposal. Evet, bu yüzden dolayı ben bunu söyledim. Ama I just wanted to, when you are an academician, sorry, I just wanted to elaborate on this a little bit. I know that you have also pinpointed this issue and you have offered Turkey as a
sensitivity because of I need to give the framework, because Kosovo is a good example, but how Kosovo is realized is important. the regional actors agreed,
Yes.
International actors agreed, and also it's not only an example. For instance, the mission of Turkey in Afghanistan is also important. I mean, Turkish army is not regarded as any other army in Afghanistan still, for instance. So it made very professionally. Bu tarz girişimler karşı değilim ama yerel, bölgesel ve uluslararası sistemin dengeleri gözetilerek yapılması.
Genel Türk dış politikası
and international actors. Of course, your approaches in the when we talk about the Turkish foreign policy approaches, I think this is very important. And so, is there any other question or? Because also Dania gave a response to Khan's question. If no questions, I just want to complete the session. I just want to complete the session by stating some insights. We have also already out of our time. Of course, as Murat mentioned, our colleague, of course, assuming such a mission by Turkey can only happen together with international legitimacy and together with a regional agreement. This can only be done with this. Of course, this might have some obstacles, there might have some barriers, but in terms of realpolitik, as Dania mentioned, we have to create this, we have to revitalize this buffer zone or security zone, and to make sure that Turkey can also there are some certain conditions to be assuming such an intermediary problem. Maybe Turkey might be the most suitable actor in the region, given its military capacity, given its previous accomplishments in international missions, Turkey's acceptability in the region, and its capacity. But of course, there are serious risks, of course, in terms of this existing conflict. Of course, when we look at the perception of Turkey, and also I just want to make a very final contribution. Turkey's relationship with Hezbollah, when it's Iran, there is no problem. I mean, as President Erdogan mentioned, Erdogan also said that we are always standing by Lebanon. So, but the problem here is, especially with Hezbollah, especially in the aftermath of Syrian civil war, there have been some problems during this past 10-year period, when there have been some serious crises even that we have lived with Hezbollah. Especially, there have been some reactions and attacks against the Turkish presence in Lebanon by Hezbollah. So maybe there might be such a lack of trust. But of course, given these Israel's attacks, and as the groups inside of Lebanon are uniting against the Israeli attacks, and when we talk about Turkey's situation, Turkey can also giving a lot of reaction, especially in terms of the attacks in Lebanon. But when it's Hezbollah, maybe it's not the same perception. I mean, with regard to Palestine, with regard to Hamas, Hezbollah, they are considered in a different manner by the Turkish government. But as I said, there is a common vision and common understanding against Israel's attacks, and Turkey is now supporting Hezbollah in Lebanon, especially against Israeli attacks. I think there is no other question. It's been a very timely conference today. So we had a very timely, very good panel today, together with the participation of the experts. So we tried to talk about it. So thank you very much for coming. I would like to thank each and every one of these participants for your questions and for your comments. I also would like to thank our panelists, for our speakers, to Dania, to Gökhan, Batu, and to our Tınas. So I would like to see you in the next ORSAM activity.